I told him I needed space. Now he is with someone else and I can't handle it. Hey, Redditors. It's me, Kelly, female, 23 years old. The name's actually Michaela, but whatever. So I told my husband I needed space. Now he's with another woman and it's driving me crazy. My apologies if this turns out to be a bit long, but it wouldn't be if it wasn't important. My husband Dave and I had been married for 2 years, before all hell went loose. Dave and I met in the second week of college, and you could say our meeting was predestined. Yeah, predestined. Meaning we were meant to be with each other, am I right? So why? Why does he think he can just move on without me? I won't let that happen. We both had made friends with the same 2 couples, and they wanted to head into town for a break, so he and I went together just to have a partner to join them. After a while, we began to realize that we were really into each other. We enjoyed each other's company and that. Dave was so respectful. Even though we weren't married yet, he treated me like I was his wife, his queen. Well, not anymore, since I let him down. By the second year together, when summer came, we decided we did not want to be apart, and so we got married. We were both virgins on our wedding night. We were both nervous and excited about being together for the first time. It wasn't until the 3rd week of being together that we got very romantic. I had no idea sex would feel so good. Coming from a strong Catholic home, my parents grounded me strongly in what was and wasn't acceptable in the faith. And so before I got married to Dave, I hadn't done as much as pecked a boy in my entire life. I was on a celibacy journey, and thankfully Dave wanted the same thing. It was part of the reason we got married quickly in the first place. It was getting harder and harder to resist temptation. But even when we got married, I guess we were both just too shy to see each other's nudes. But when we finally got over that, it was wonderful, and we couldn't go a day without it. We would smile or wink at each other to get into the bedroom twice a day, almost every day. We only skipped a day when one of us was sick or had to go somewhere. We thought all couples were like this, so crazy in love and so happy. We kind of got married in a rush, so we weren't that stable as a family yet. But we were comfortable, just the 2 of us in our cozy little apartment. We didn't want to have any kids yet. We wanted to be very much settled. Dave worked part-time and earned a decent amount, okay, maybe a bit more than decent. He was an IT guy. Did freelance web development and stuff, and he really did invest in his job, especially when we got married. Said he didn't want me lacking anything, and he made sure of that. I, on the other hand, I just did the chores and went to school. One time I thought of getting a part-time. Dave was totally against the idea, said he didn't want me getting all worked up, that I should just focus on school in the meantime, and when I was done, I could work anywhere I wanted. I was an econ major, by the way. Before we knew it, college was over. We both had our degrees. Dave was still doing his freelance work, but he was heading towards building his own agency. Hell, he was already putting his degree to use. I, on the other hand, hadn't learned any skills that would raise my chances of getting a good-paying job with my degree. And getting a master's degree wasn't on my mind just yet, even though Dave had been encouraging me to go for it and let him pay the fee. I just wasn't ready to start school all over again, you know. So, most of the time, I just stayed home with Dave. He worked remotely, so he was never not around. And he wasn't just there, he was actively there. He always made me feel seen, and sometimes he'd even wait to work more when I was asleep and didn't notice his absence on the other side of the bed. I'm a deep sleeper. Bottom line is he was always there, maybe a little too much sometimes. Our sex life was great too. He fucked me like he was born for it, you know? Sorry. But one day, I was sitting idly and began to think deep. And it occurred to me that all my life, Dave had been the only man I ever laid with, which was weird compared to what my girlfriends had done with their youth, and were still doing. Like I was only 23. I had a long life ahead of me, and I never truly got to leave my youth years. Thinking about this all over again, I think it's certain that an idle mind is really the devil's workshop. Had I been working, going to school or anything, maybe even helping my husband with his work, such thoughts wouldn't have found their way into my head. But what can I say now? What is done is done. After having so many absurd thoughts, I decided to link up to my girlfriend from college, the same one whose getaway got Dave and I together in the first place. I kind of cut off from her and a couple of other friends when Dave and I got married. Not that they were bad or anything, it's just I had heard so many stories where friends outside of marriage wrecked people's marriages, and I didn't want that to be my story. But look at me now. How ironic. Well, I wouldn't entirely blame Claire for what's happened to me. It's mostly my fault. So, back to my reunion with Claire. Turned out her and her boyfriend had broken up, long before college was even over, and she was already with the second man after him. I kind of envied her. In my mind, she could break and make as she wished, but I was stuck there with Dave. When Claire and I met, we got talking, and after hearing all about her life with men, I got that weird feeling again, like I wanted to taste something different, to feel someone else, you know. Claire may not have known it, but hearing all about her life made me want to live it. I started by deceiving Dave that I was starting master's classes, so he gave me tuition fees occasionally for each quarter. Thinking about it again, I don't even know why I did that. I wasted the money anyway. And I mean, it's not like he didn't give me money when I asked. Even when I didn't, he gave me. Maybe I just needed a reason to be out of the house living life. And time away from him too, of course. Because his presence around the house and around me all the time began to make me feel suffocated. Like I felt I needed fresh air to breathe, a different kind of air, with different people, like I felt stuck, if you know what I mean. But I guess I was just where I was meant to be, with whom I was meant to be with. I didn't just realize it, and took all the love, care, and kindness Dave gave me for granted. I just hope he finds a place in his heart to forgive me someday. So, every time I supposedly left for school, I'd end up at Claire's instead. That's why whenever Dave offered to drive me, I said no. At some point he may have started to suspect it, but I decided to ignore that and told myself it was all in my head, and that to Dave I was his sweet and overly innocent wife who couldn't do as much as her to fly. But I wasn't so innocent anymore, and I didn't just end up betraying my husband, but my friend as well. As hard as this may be to believe, I feel really terrible about what I've done, and I wish I could go back in time or something, just anything to undo what I've done, but I guess it's too late for that. 9 times out of 10, when I went to Claire's home, her boyfriend Max was there. Well, technically it was Max's house. Claire moved in at his request. So he was usually around. I really admired them. They made a cute couple. Claire was a pretty girl, and Max was a fine young man with beautiful hair. And unlike Dave, who stayed home all day, Max actually visited the gym, like he was so fit. Sometimes I wished Claire was out somewhere so I could ogle in peace. Dave and I didn't have sex as frequently as we used to, because I really wasn't interested in sleeping with him anymore, maybe just for that time. One morning I went to Claire's and she said she was about to step out for grocery shopping. I asked her about Max, and she said he'd gone to the gym. Claire wanted me to go with her to the supermarket, but I lied I wasn't feeling too well, and would just wait till she got back. But the truth is, I was hoping Max would be back before her, and he was. He entered the door looking all sweaty and hot, and then he gave me that flirty smile. It wasn't the first time. Even when Claire was somewhere around the house, he'd smack his lips whenever it was just us in a space, or undress me with his eyes. Normally, I wouldn't be able to spot or interpret such looks, but they were the same as the ones Dave gave me whenever he wanted us to get at it, so you see? And I'm not trying to shift blame or anything, but it wasn't entirely my fault. If Max hadn't been making me feel some kind of way, none of this would have happened in the first place. But it's just me bearing the consequences over here. So he smiled and passed to the kitchen to get water. He moved and flexed like he was actually trying to show off his built physique, and it worked. I was so carried away. Then he intentionally came and sat on the same cushion as me. He asked where Claire was, and I told him she went to the grocery store. Then he smirked and kept drinking the water. A moment later, he said he was beginning to feel hot and took his shirt off. I swear in that minute, I just wanted to rip him apart, and don't get me wrong, I meant that in a sexual way. He must have noticed the way I looked at his abs with so much lust, because he turned and asked me if I wanted to touch it. I nodded, and then he took my hand and placed it there. My breathing became unstable, and the next thing he started kissing me. I didn't push him away, and I didn't hesitate either. It was the moment I had been waiting for a long time. Short and long of the story is that we had sex. It was brief, we made sure of that. And then a few minutes later, Claire came home. Max acted natural, but I couldn't. It felt awkward. So we spent the rest of the day just talking about random things, more like just her talking, and I was basking in the awkward mood and the thought that I was close to knowing what a man that is not Dave felt like. That night when I went home, Dave knew something was off about me and that I wasn't my usual self, because he kept on asking if I was all right and if anything went wrong at school and all, but I just kept turning him down. I went inside, so while changing to my PJs, he came in all worried and concerned about me, being the good and loving husband he is, and then I snapped and I yelled at him, complaining about how he was always in my business and not giving me enough time to myself. Yeah, I know that was stupid, but I didn't know how else to get him off my back, coupled with the fact that I could still feel Max's every touch lingering on my skin. So he left, and as I demanded, gave me time to myself, and for the first time since we got married, Dave slept on the couch. The next morning, I was up before him. Seeing him on the couch made me feel bad, so I made breakfast and apologized to him, telling him I had a very bad day in school and all. Being Dave, he understood and comforted me, and in the heat of the moment, we had sex in there. But it wasn't enough. I knew I wanted another. I wanted more. Dave wasn't satisfying me any longer, and my friend's boyfriend was on the top of the list of the more I wanted. Max never tried to contact me after, and I continued visiting Claire. I always hoped she would go away for a while and leave me alone with Max, but nope, that wasn't happening. And to crown the whole thing, Claire was finally taking him serious, talking about how she sees more in him than her previous lovers. But I wasn't having that. I wanted Max, and that was all I could put my mind on. Yes, I know I was a bitch, or is a witch, lusting over my only friend's boyfriend and lying to my husband. But I had gotten to a point where I really didn't care at all. One day, Claire called me to tell me she wouldn't be home the next day, and that she was going to visit her mom, and that she will be gone for a day or two. I saw this as my golden ticket to Max. The next day I got dressed as usual, turned down Dave's millionth offer to drop me off at school, and headed to Max's place. Max received me with open arms. I dropped my bag and stood, and that was when I asked myself what I was doing there. But just then, Max interrupted my thoughts with a glass of juice and apologized for the supposed mess, saying the gym was out of function, so he had to use his living room as a makeshift gym. He asked if I knew Claire was away, and I said yes, and immediately his look morphed into one of the ones he usually gives me, knowing I was in and there wasn't an out for this. I decided to relax, and long story cut short, we had sex again. Only this time we weren't mindful of time at all, so I must admit it was mind-blowing. Mind-blowing sex. Max was more versatile and innovative. He knew what to do, where to touch, and what to do with what, unlike what it usually was with Dave. And after it, I felt there was more outside me in Dave's little bubble. I left Max's place quite satisfied, but my satisfaction was short-lived when I walked into the house, seeing rose petals scattered around and a particular trail which I followed into our bathroom, and a perfect relaxation bath was set up, and Dave was sitting in the tub waiting for me. Yes, a perfect man. I totally agree with you. He said I have been looking stressed from all the schoolwork, so he wanted to help me relax. Yeah, I climbed in with him and tried enjoying the rest of the evening. Scratch that, the rest of the perfect evening he had planned out for me. Well, you know the calm before the storm and all? Yes, this was that moment. Dave and I were cool, and it was like he took a crash course on how to love your wife more and make better love to her or something. Well, not until he started asking serious questions about my masters. At first I tried to dodge the questions, and it was successful not until one night we were watching TV, and he said I should remind him what school I said I was attending. I was dumbfounded. I really didn't remember what school I had told him initially, and I didn't want to say the wrong thing. So I kept mute, and that was when he began to complain that he'd never seen my school, any school-related materials, not even the receipt for the tuition fees he has been paying for. Man, I knew he had all right to ask those questions, but I felt threatened, so I accused him of not trusting me and then went inside. The next day in the morning, he came to apologize, but then I turned him down and told him that I needed space. Yes, I know that was literally the dumbest thing I've ever done, and trust me, I've done a lot of dumb things. At first he thought I meant at that moment, but then I told him that I needed some time away from him, like we could be away from each other for a year or so, like we won't be married, just I needed to be away from him. He stood there quietly, he said nothing, and then he went straight to the closet and started packing my stuff into a suitcase. At first I was shocked he wasn't asking or begging me to stay. He wasn't looking at me like I meant the world to him anymore. He was just cold. When he was done packing up, he took the bag outside and left it on the porch. I got dressed up and went out. I looked at him on my way out, but he didn't spare me a glance. I was totally confused. I thought maybe he was just hurt that I wanted to be away from him, but there was more to it. That night I went to Claire's place and she took me in, cleared the extra room for me, and then I slept there. The next day I told her that we had an argument, and I decided to leave, and she was so sorry for me. But I guess there wasn't any reason to feel sorry for me because I was where I wanted to be. That day we checked out apartments, yes. I was going to use the money Dave had been giving me to buy an apartment. We didn't see any conducive ones, so we gave up, and that evening we went partying. I tried every humanly possible means to not cross paths with Max, and I was successful. The next day, Claire and I decided we were going to go shopping. I was finally living the life I wanted. I decided to sponsor the shopping, planning on using the money in Dave's and my joint account. When we got there after buying everything we needed, we were at the desk trying to pay, but the card kept rejecting my access to the account, so I tried the other card and it was frozen. Immediately, I knew this had something to do with Dave, and I tried reaching him, but it was either he blocked me or changed his number. Either way, he was unreachable. All through that time, Claire took care of my bills whenever we went out, and I was still not able to reach Dave. After a week or so, I received divorce papers from Dave. It happened all too suddenly. This was just 2 days after I left the house. And where did Dave get so much money that he could process divorce papers in such a short time? Plus, we didn't have any major argument anyway, so I was confused. I felt he wasn't serious about it, and that if he were serious, he would call me, or at least come to convince me to sign the papers, or at least tell me why he suddenly wanted a divorce. So I disregarded the papers. He loved me too much to want to live without me, or so I thought. Meanwhile, I and Claire sometimes frequented the club. I began drinking and hooking up. One time I went with Claire and Max, so we were in the club. Claire and I on the dance floor while Max was at the bar talking to some friends he met in the club. So I excused myself from the dance floor to use the loo. On my way out, I bumped into someone. Looking up, it was Max looking down at me, and a dirty smile playing on his lips. He asked if I was avoiding him, and I said obviously not, so he said he missed me, and I was like, well, here I am. I really didn't want to have anything to do with Max again, for real this time. Because Claire was doing so much for me, I didn't want to betray her again. But I was so drunk and hyped up we did it again. Later, I went back to Claire and lied that I was with this hot guy I met. I kept partying, hooking up with every guy that looked at me twice, and everything Claire had told me she did. I even tried smoking once, but that didn't work out. I did all this with the thought of Dave gnawing on my mind, like why he hadn't called yet. One day, Claire called saying she felt Max was cheating on her and she didn't know what to do. She sounded devastated as she asked me to meet her in a pub down the street. I went there. But just as I was about entering the pub, I spotted Dave walking into a diner directly opposite the pub I was meeting with Claire. With this blonde hanging on his arm, he looked so happy I couldn't stomach it. Like, what the hell was going on? I felt like jumping on that blonde and pulling her hair out. But I didn't want to come off as a mad person, so I just walked into the pub and sat across from Claire, but I wasn't there at all. I kept looking out the window at the diner. I couldn't see inside, even though I wished I could. Claire noticed my mind wasn't with her, so I lied that I was worried about what was going on with Dave, and also feeling bad for her, because if her perfect relationship was crumbling, then nothing is perfect. And just like that, she was the one consoling me. Yes, I said earlier, a perfect friend. Eventually, she left the pub without me, because I told I was meeting with someone there. After sitting there for about 15 minutes, I saw Dave and his blonde walking out of the diner. At first glance, they looked like they were just professionally inclined. And that's believable, because Dave didn't exactly associate with women or anyone, but I had to confirm for myself, so I went out. Dave saw me, I knew he did, but he acted like he didn't, and before I could cross the road, he ushered the lady into his car and drove off. That night, I found myself awake and wondering about a lot of things. What if they were together? Was she his girlfriend? Did he love her? Was he into blondes now? A lot of questions were swirling in my mind, and in all these questions, I didn't bother to ask myself if he truly did want me to sign the papers. So I picked up my phone and called him, but it went straight to voicemail. At first, I thought, why did I care? but I knew that feeling. It was pure jealousy and hatred for this blonde cause. I concluded she might have been the one who inspired the divorce papers, or she was the reason. Either way, I didn't like her. It was only a week since I left home, and she already thought she could take my place. So I went to his Instagram page, looking at his recent posts, and then I saw a picture of him in front of a building. It was like an office building, a very simple one. And in the next picture, him, the blonde, and some other people were in front of the same building, and on the banner behind them was the name of a tech agency. I knew it was a tech agency because one of the guys I hooked up kept rambling on how he got a well-paying job there and he came to celebrate it. That was when I remembered Dave was working on something like that. I totally forgot. And it had been a long time since we actually talked about his work. I stopped asking, but now he's gone big. He always used to say that everything he wanted to achieve was for me and our unborn children, but now I wasn't even there, and he went on with his life with another woman beside him. I felt like I missed the most important part of his life, but I knew he loved me, so why and how was the blonde so present in his life? But while I was pondering that same evening, Max texted me for the first time. I don't know why exactly he did. I was literally under his roof, though neither he nor Claire was home. I don't even know how he got my number. He said we should meet up in this bar, so I went and we spent a few minutes there. Then we moved to the club just across the bar. We were dancing pressed up against each other. I began to forget all I was thinking about earlier. We were kissing and all of a sudden Max froze. I turned and saw Claire looking at us with so much pain and hurt in her eyes, and before any of us could move a muscle, she was bursting out of the club. Max ran after her, and by the time I got there, he was standing, his head hanging low. I tried talking to him, but he just shoved me aside and left. 2 days later, neither Claire nor Max were picking up my calls or replying to my texts, and I had moved to a motel just down the street from where Max's house was. Claire's anger and distance that I understood, but I sincerely didn't know why Max wasn't answering. I sat and began to ask myself questions and then realized I didn't have anyone to talk to, which is still the case. That's why I'm here. So I messaged Dave asking him to meet me the next day at the same diner I saw him in the day before. I don't know why I thought he'd even come. Even the message bounced back. The next day I went to the diner and sat waiting, or should I say hoping he'll come around. I sat for about 10 minutes and then he came in and went straight to the front lady and asked for a cup of coffee while they were preparing it. I walked up to him and said hi. When he turned and saw it was me, his face immediately turned red in anger and asked what I wanted. Then I asked him how he was, but I guess he wasn't in the mood for chit-chat because he grabbed his coffee and was about to walk out on me. But I stepped in his way and started asking him why he was not answering my calls, and I couldn't reach him, and I was demanding an explanation for his recent actions. Just as I was about to ask who the blonde he had been parading around with was, he lost it. He was yelling. He told me how after I left, he went to ask around and found out that I was never going to school, and then he found out that I was having affairs outside our marriage. I really still don't know how he knew that. He said I'd been whoring around and that he regretted ever knowing me, that I could go to hell for all he cared, and in his words, I should bloody well sign those papers. I stood there frozen. I had never seen this side of Dave in our 2 years of being together. Then, as if it wasn't bad enough, the same blonde from the other day came and was like, "Babe, is everything okay?" And there I lost it, as if that wasn't bad enough. He told her it wasn't nothing, just trash from his past. That hit me hard. I felt like my husband had been hypnotized or something, like they had taken away my most loved possession. I immediately held his arm, trying to pull him off her grasp, but then he pushed me off and I fell to the floor. He acted like he didn't notice, and then walked out with her. Then I lifted my head and saw the audience we had attracted. So many people were staring at me in disgust. I didn't know what to feel. I was feeling hurt, betrayed, embarrassed, and angry. I went back to the motel and trashed my entire room in rage. I couldn't bear the thought of him being with that girl. Them sleeping together, it was driving me crazy. I felt pulling out my hair. I felt like my world was turning upside down. I went to the house the next day. Nobody was there. So I went to the company, even though it was hard to find. When I got to the reception, they refused to let me in because I didn't have a booked appointment with him. Like, can you believe it? I now had to book an appointment to see my own husband. I told the lady I was his wife, and she looked at me like I was crazy and said he was not married, and everyone knew that. Just as I was about to give up, I saw his supposed girlfriend coming out of an escalator walking like she owned the place. When she saw me, she excused herself from the people she was with and came to me. She stretched her hands out for a handshake, and I noticed the ring on her finger, so I asked her where Dave was. She pulled me outside. When we were outside, she adjusted herself and smiled, saying that she was Maya. And before I asked, the ring meant nothing. It was for fashion. I guess she noticed me staring at her hand like I was going to chop it off. And I asked her why she was the one I was talking to when I was there to see Dave. That was when she said Dave didn't want to see me, and that Dave was really a good guy because he was waiting for me to sign the papers before they started dating properly, because they were kind of at it, and that he wanted to start afresh with her, so she was begging me to sign the papers. At that moment, I didn't want to believe that Dave and her were dating or even planning on it. And before I knew what was happening, I was on her, clawing at her, pulling everything I could hold. But unfortunately, before I could do any main damage, the security pulled me off her, and she just said I should leave before Dave saw me here because he was going to loose it, and she went inside. That evening I got a mail. It was a restraining order. I was not allowed to be seen a yard close to Dave and Maya, and the next was a written note from Dave. He said the restraining order wasn't his idea. It was Maya being an angel that if it was up to him, I'll leave the country in a hole. But this was the last warning. Leave the country? Was that a threat? Or did he have that much power now? I screamed so loud my throat hurt, knocking everything on my way down. I was feeling so much hate and anger. I felt like the last string of belonging I had was cut it off by a flipping restraining order. Like it wasn't enough that he was with someone else, he had to do this to me. I didn't know what to do. I was angry and had nobody to talk to. No friends, no family. Yes, I know I'm partly to blame, but don't I at least deserve a second chance? Or was that just it? This was last week, and I'm still here, not sure of what to do. To be honest, at this point, I don't know if I can still be helped. I don't know if any advice would be useful. I just needed somewhere to pour out my rage and frustration right now, and this seemed like the only place available. Any advice would still be much welcome. But I'll be stopping here. It took me a few days to write this up, and it felt like I was relieving the whole thing. Bye guys, update. Hey guys, it's me again. Life's been going not so great. No positive change. Instead, I now see them everywhere. From TV shows to social media, literally everywhere. And when I hear him talk on those shows about how he got to where he is, and how there was obstacles and blocks, but he made it regardless, I feel like I'm the one he's referring to as obstacles. I don't know. I just feel so. Because I know Dave, yeah, so well, but what I never knew was his anger and resentment. He'd never shown it before. And now that he finally did, I was so unlucky to be on the receiving end. I still don't know what to do. The constant pop-ups of Dave's and Maya's perfect lives keeps pushing me off the rail, and it feels like I was getting crazier by the day. Sometimes I wake up screaming and all, to crown the whole thing. I then realize that I love Dave too much. I can't stand him being with Maya. But I don't really have a choice, because 2 days back, another set of divorce papers were sent to me, and Dave had already signed it, so I had to sign to finalize the whole thing, but I still can't. And I still have them lying unattended to on the table. Well, I don't think I could move on from this, but I'm still happy I was able to channel all the frustration into typing this and all. And I think I'll just sign the papers after this, 'cause it's pretty obvious I've lost. Dragging it on doesn't really change anything, does it? Oh well, thank you guys for the little advices and even the insults. At this point, I think I deserve them all. This is my only update, so bye.